everybody, it's Brett from Crow Hollow Woodworks. Today we're going to be building a Moxon Vise. A Moxon Vise, or a twin screw vise as it's sometimes called, is a useful benchtop addition that is great for elevated work holding, particularly dovetail work, which is why we're going to build one today. The materials needed for this project are all common and purchased at a local hardware store. Total cost was roughly $30, which is great for a beginner who might not be able to afford a high-end kit. Check out the video description for a detailed materials list. I chose 1x6 poplar for the construction because it's readily available at most hardware stores while still being a decent quality hardwood. Be sure to pick out the clearest, straightest boards you can find, and even better if you can find them rift or quarter sawn. I wanted a medium-sized vise about 2 feet long and 6 inches wide, which should give me about 18 inches between the screws. I'm cutting these into 4 2-foot sections using the previously cut board to mark the next. These will be laminated together to form both sides of the vise, or the chops. Final dimensions will be 2 sections that are 2 inches wide by 2 feet long. When you're ready to glue the boards together to form the chops, be sure that the glue faces are clean and free of dust. There are many options for glue choice here, but I went with Titebond 2. Use a liberal amount of glue on each board and spread it out evenly. Place clamps evenly along the length of the chop and repeat for the other side. Once the glue has dried, scrape off any excess that may have squeezed out during the clamping. Using a table saw, trim the edges of each chop to remove any unevenness. And finally, true up each edge with either a joiner or a hand plane. Before drilling the holes for the screws, line your boards up flush and clamp them to prevent shifting. Lay out the holes using the center line of the chop and coming in 3 inches from the side. Drill the hole with a 1-inch drill bit, making sure to only go halfway through. Flip the chop over, lay out this side, and continue drilling. This should help ensure that the holes line up perfectly. Use a rasp to clean up the sides of the hole and any tear out that might have happened on the surface. Next, you will lay out the mortise for each nut. I used a combination square to help keep the nut aligned with the edge of the chop and marked all the edges with a marking knife. Use a sharp chisel to chop out the mortise just a shade deeper than the thickness of the nut. This captured nut will allow the threaded rod to remain secure in the chop with the help of the rear nut. Check the depth of the mortise as you go with the nut. Make sure that you don't cut it too deep. Once both mortises are cut, check the fit of the components to make sure that there isn't any binding. Use a marking gauge to lay out the chamfer on the front chop, which will allow for a little more clearance for sawing. Plane all 4 edges to each mark. I used a jack plane and a block plane to accomplish this, but you can also get this same effect with sandpaper. Use a palm sander or a sanding block to smooth each joint and face. I started with 120 grit and worked all the way up through 400 grit. Wipe each chop down with alcohol to remove all sanding dust from the surface.
To line the face of each chop, I use an adhesive back cork drawer liner material. Leather can also be used in this case, but this option is both cheaper and easier to apply. After rolling out the cork, cut an oversized piece for each chop. Peel off the backing and align the piece of cork on each face, making sure to smooth out any air bubbles. Use a razor blade to trim the cork to the edge of each chop. Use the same razor blade to trim the cork from around the hole on each chop. It wants to try to crumble here as you make a round cut, but just take your time and it should come out fine. To add a clamping surface as well as some additional mass to the rear chop, I used a narrow piece of yellow pine that is slightly wider than the vise, which I'll attach later in the video. For the finish, I used a mixture of boiled linseed oil and beeswax, which is easy to apply, easy to renew, and it smells great. A couple of coats in this application should be more than efficient. Lay out 3 evenly spaced marks on your clamping board and drill out pilot holes for the attachment screws. Clamp the 2 boards together so that the pilot holes line up. Finish drilling out the holes in the rear chop and attach the clamping board to the rear chop with 3 brass screws. Finally, assemble everything together and your Moxon Vise is ready for action. The clamping board should allow the vise to fit most workbenches, making it very portable. Total cost of materials was less than $50, and a vise like this could easily be built in a weekend. The width and throat should be wide enough to accommodate most applications, and the wingnut should allow for easy and fast adjustment of the chop. Thanks for watching, and be sure to hit the subscribe button and visit my website for more project builds, how-tos, and restorations.